Hello again, guys. This has been a video long time coming. Now, I'm going to theorize the origins of my chapter, the Marines Malevolent. Now, when we speculate as to what legions they come from, clearly we're going to have to dive into a little bit of the lore as to why it is I don't think they are, or why I think they are certain matches, and why people generally come to a consensus that this might be the chapter this chapter hails from. Alrighty, so here we go. First step is Ultramarines. I already know that Ultramarines have a very high likely that they are going to be the owners of the Marines Malevolent. Why do I say that? It's mostly because the Marines Malevolent have shown a versatile role. They're able to do infantry tactics, they're able to do whirlwinds, they're able to do just about everything decently. They're not able to craft weapons and armor since they don't have the Adeptus Mechanicus to make it for them, but they're versatile enough to really make sure that everything's working perfectly without a Mechanicus to come look at it. That's pretty amazing feat, honestly, that they're this versatile. But that same notion, on the flip side, they have to be versatile. And we see it where a few other Space Marine chapters who eventually succumb to Chaos Forces, they join certain Chaos Forces that are totally different gene seed, yet they're able to actually adapt and become better than the own Chaos Marines in their own special field of warfare. Now, that's actually really interesting. So when it comes to the Marines Malevolent, that is the only contrary thing, is that any chapter could be this versatile if they were forced to be. That being said, when it comes to the Ultramarines, the only reason why I say that they have a high likability, despite sharing absolutely nothing with them. Mind you, the Marines Malevolent are totally pragmatic. They do not care about how many casualties they inflict. They don't care about collateral damage. Whereas Ultramarines actually do, to a very small extent. They only care if it's necessary. They only care about the necessary amount. They won't jump out of their way like Salamanders to protect a civilian, but they're not going to jump in front of a bullet if it's going to hurt them either. They're just going to let the civilian have to fare on his own. The Marines Malevolent do not share that idea, but at the same time, you have the Mortificators chapter, which I did a lore video on. They are nothing like the Ultramarines. And they're not the only Ultramarine successor that has zero similarities. You have the Iron Snakes. You have a few other chapters that the Ultramarines are successors of, and they are nothing like the Ultramarines. So that's why I'm saying Marines Malevolent have a high likability to probably being Robert Gilliman. But let's look into the other chapters and legions. So, what about the Blood Angels? Clearly not. Clearly they have absolutely no way that their gene seed comes from the Blood Angels or the Space Wolves. And the reason why I say that is because, one, they are the 32nd Millennium founding chapter. So that means they're pretty fucking old. They're almost first founding chapters. So with that being said, there's no way that their gene seed was messed with by the Mechanicus to mutate in a way that they'd be immune to the Wolfen curse or to the blood rage that the Blood Angels suffer. So already Space Wolves and Blood Angels are off. We know for a fact those two are not going to be successors. So what about the rest? The next would be the Imperial Fist. Now, the Imperial Fist actually has a high likability to being the Marines Malevolent as well. And the reason why is because the Imperial Fist, they suffered a lot of casualties before they divided into chapters. So there is the possibility that these guys are actually a split off of the next chapters after that. But, that's a little rough to say because they don't expertise in fortifications, they don't expertise in siege warfare. But there is a chapter that is an Imperial Fist that doesn't excel at that either. And you know who I'm talking about, baby. The Black Templars. Ha ha ha. The most hateful motherfuckers in the world. And if anything, if you look at the Black Templars and you look at the Marines Malevolent, they agree with each other almost 100%. They both believe that the Treaty of Nicaea is still in effect. They absolutely refuse to help mutants. If you have any mutants in your army, they will refuse to help you, and they would probably kill you. Hell, the Marines Malevolent actually will not work with the Black Dragons. They refuse. They see them as mutants, and they think that that's terrible to be that way. So there's a lot of things culturally and in beliefs that these guys share a lot of ideas. But here's the issue. The Black Templars have honor. The Marines Malevolent don't see that. They see it as a luxury to have honor, creed, to ever have pride. They see it as worthless. Because in the end of the day, if you lose, what good does that honor give you? Yeah, you went sword to sword against the Carnifex and you won. Cool. But you fucking died later because of your stupidity, and you lost the war. So now humanity's dead. Who gives a fuck about your honor? That's essentially the Marines' Malevolent stance on that. And the Black Templars, as crazy as they are and as hateful as they are, they would never really kill another Space Marine just because they can, or just because the Marine was wounded. The Marines Malevolent would. And again, that's kind of like on the contrary, where it's like, well, at the same time, they're killing that Marine because they need the armor. They need the weapons. Whereas a Black Templar, if he was put in that situation, he might be pressed to do the same thing, but they do have honor. Whereas Marine Malevolent do not give a fuck. There's also that other thing, too, where the Black Templar actively seek out witches, mutants, and heretics. The Marines Malevolent will not. They really have too much problems on their hands to really give a fuck. But there's still that high likability that they might be Rogel Dorn's lot. And they might be related to the Black Templars. Now, this, of course, would piss off the Black Templars because they've killed a lot of Black Templars for their armor. So, yeah, that's a rough pill to swallow there, my lads. Now, another chapter I would say that is very interesting to look at would be the Iron Hand. Now, the Iron Hand has been known to be pragmatic, all about logic. They won't sacrifice themselves for a civilian because they don't see any logical reason behind it. So yeah, they're right up Marines Malevolent alley. The only problem is that Iron Hands are really good at maintaining equipment. They're really good at maintaining weapons, arms, all sorts of stuff. The only thing in the Marines Malevolent arsenal they've been able to maintain really well is their bolters. Besides that, their armor is in shambles. Hell, one Marine Malevolent took off his helmet, and instead of having a magna lock for his helmet to just magnetically lock onto his armor, instead he had just a leather strap. That's how bad conditions the armors are in. So, the Iron Hand is a possibility. I wouldn't put it there though, because again, even during the Horus Heresy, they still had a lot of emotions in them. They still were willing to save civilians. They still cared about honor and pride. Now the Marines Malevolent are starting to step into the dickishness of logic. They aren't even that logical sometimes. Sometimes they see a fellow soldier who's wounded, and instead of just simply going by the logic of saying, okay, well, he's gonna die, let him die, whatever. Instead, they'll actively just stomp him to death. Even though it didn't gain them nothing, even though it didn't do anything against the enemy, they just do it. They're dicks. They don't like weakness. At the same time, the Iron Hands are much the same flock, where they don't like weakness, where they replace a lot of their body with cybernetics. But the Marines Malevolent, they don't care for cybernetics. They don't have that stuff. They don't have any sort of protrusions of mechadendrites and stuff. That again could be attributed, though, to their relationship with the Mechanicus. Aside from that, they really don't share anything at all, like personality. They don't share anything skill related to the Iron Hands. It's really just about the one simple fact, which is that they're pragmatic. But at the same time, a lot of other chapters are pragmatic, yet they're all over the place as far as their descendancy goes. So, on to the next Loyalist chapter. Woohoo! We're really gunning through this. The Salamanders! Ha ha ha! I already know what you're gonna say. Oh, but Freeze 700, they have so much history with the Salamanders. I just think that's GW's way of trying to establish irony. But the problem is that just because you have a lot of relations with a certain chapter, just because you have a lot of incidences, that doesn't mean that you're related to them. Now, mind you, after the Horus Heresy, the Salamanders were so badly wounded that they couldn't make another successor. They just couldn't. So the fact that the Marines Malevolent are a very, very, very old chapter as of 41K, that already eliminates them from ever being Salamander. But let's look into it a little deeper. So, Salamanders, if they ever go onto the planet Nocturne and they're exposed to the radiation on Nocturne, they get that dark skin pigment. They become that way. And with the red eyes and all that fun stuff. Well, a Marine Malevolent hangs around the Salamanders so many fucking times, you would think some of that radiation would hit them. And then they would mutate. But they don't. They don't share any pyromania, they don't share any of the culture, any of the beliefs. Now, at the same time, cultures and beliefs are more or less restricted to the chapter, not necessarily restricted to the gene seed, but the gene seed definitely does irk them to do some things that would normally be a little out of character. So, yeah, they just don't do it. And if GW ever says, oh, they're actually related to the Salamanders, I'm going to hate that. And I'm going to disown the Marine Malevolent colors. And I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm actually a different chapter now. Fuck these guys. Because there's just no justification in it. There's absolutely zero relations to the Salamanders. So on to the next one. So what about the Dark Angels? Yeah, this one's going to be a little rough. So far, they've done absolutely nothing to show that they are Dark Angels types. But I will give them the credibility that they're a very, 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 very fucking low chance that they might actually be Dark Angels. The only reason why I would say that is because the Dark Angels, they like to use advanced weaponry on their foes who use lesser advanced weaponry, like plasma and fast, rapid deployment. But the Marines Malevolent, they like to use, well, heavy ordnance to get rid of an opponent, which isn't exactly a Dark Angel thing. They prefer more, plasma weapons. So yeah, we're going to have to scratch this one off. But, hey, there is that possibility, that all that hatred they have for the Fallen just got twisted in a weird sort of way where they just didn't know that their hatred was for the Fallen and not for the weak. There's always that possibility. But I highly doubt it. Especially the way that the Dark Angels are always well connected with all their brethren, even their successors. So yeah, I just find that very hard to believe, really. Because even though they're split chapters, they're very well connected to each other. And there's always a few Dark Angel chapters, very, very few, who don't agree about the whole Fallen scenario, but they're still in touch with the Dark Angels. They're still able to talk to them. So yeah, scratch them off. Next up, the Raven Guard. Woo-hoo! Now, already I can tell you there might be a chance. This is a moderate. Not a low chance like the other chapter, but more moderate. So this is more like Rogel Dornish, kinda. But the whole thing with the Raven Guard is that they're very pale, their gene seed's fucked, and they're just always depressed all the time. And they have like this low self-brooding hatred for just about everything. So that does strike me a bit as a Marine Malevolent. Now, the only reason why I say that is because in one of the books, there was an instance where a Marine Malevolent took off his helmet and he was really pale. But he didn't have the other signifiers like death-looking pale. Instead, it just said that he was pale. Not like deathly like a Raven Guard would. Not black eyes. Not that black, nasty-looking hair. No, he was just pale. That was it. So that already could either mean that he was a recruit, in which case this is the early signs, but I highly doubt it. Especially this Marine Malevolent in particular, he was not a recruit. So, that being said, the mutation may not be there. He may just be a Space Marine chapter that just doesn't have that god-awful Corvus fucking mutation where they just are just deathly ill. But as far as cultures and beliefs, if we look back at the Horus Heresy and a little bit before that, where Corvus took command of his legion, we saw that his legion was a lot like the Night Lords, where they would just kill civilians regardless. They didn't give a fuck. So Corvus was discussed and made some changes. Well, what if there's a few, Raven Guard who still believed in this idea? A few Raven Guard who openly despised weakness, but they were still self-brooding in how much hatred they have for the rest of mankind. Like, after all, they still hate mutants, they still hate psychers, and they might still believe the Trade Unite is still in effect. In which case, yeah, there's a total possibility they're still Raven Guard. The only issue is that they don't exhibit any of the battle tactics. So they don't use the jet troopers and stuff like that. But they definitely do have the personality, I would say. Like, if you really looked at it, they definitely do have that. Like, my favorite instance is when the commander saw that 33 of his own men were infected with an obliterator virus, which has no cure, and he just refused to let them on board and told them, bang your heads against Tushan's hammer. That's all he told them. But it's that sort of like brooding that I could definitely see them being a part of the Raven Guard. Now, the Raven Guard don't like that because, again, the Raven Guard, they may not care for honor, which, again, strikes me as a Marine Malevolent, but they aren't total dickheads to people. Like, they believe that they themselves are right and that they know better than everyone else, which, again, is a Marine Malevolent thing, but they're not going to outright fuck each other over like that. Like, that is just pure poetry right there, baby. That is so good. Aside from that, though, we do see a lot of similarities with the Carcharodons between the Marine Malevolent and the Raven Guard. So there is that medium possibility, that mediocre possibility that they could be Raven Guard. But that's going to be my verdict for them. Now, the last Loyalist Legion we have is the White Scars. Okay, so the White Scars, they use a lot of speed tactics. Oh boy. So when it comes to the White Scars, I just don't see it happening. Now, on the one hand, they do share the same color scheme as the Marauders, which is a successor chapter of the White Scars. Like, literally, if you show a Marauder next to a Marine Malevolent, they look almost fucking identical. I swear to God they do. Now, at the same time, though, the battle tactics of every White Scar successor is usually speed of one way or another. Heavy reliance on vehicles. The Marine Malevolent do not heavily rely on vehicles because those are very fucking hard to get. So, yeah, no. I just don't see it because, again, every chapter that is of the White Scars exhibits like a warrior huntership type of bond, a type of warrior hunter specialization where they hunt their prey, they hunt them down like fucking rabid dogs. They always chase. But the Marine Malevolent, they're not like that. If their enemy runs away, they don't give a fuck. As long as the enemy's fucked, that's all they care about. They don't care about chasing them to fuck them again. That's not their issue. Their issue is to just, oh, here's an enemy. If he comes at me, I'm going to whoop his ass. And then when he leaves, I'm going to take up whatever resources he left behind. That's the only way the Marine Malevolent really functions. So besides that, I just don't see the White Scars as a potential. Like, they don't have cool mustaches. There's nothing in their culture that would signify this. Like, they don't call their helmets biker helmets. So, The only thing that they really share is that one of the successor chapters of Marauders looks like them. But there's a lot of chapters that look like them. So it's kind of hard to really say that that's like a signifier. Especially since they don't chase their targets. They don't chase anything. The only thing they chase is some salamander pussy. Because anytime the salamanders get in their business, they're like, I smell some pussy tonight. And then they just start chasing them until they get whatever payment that they were expecting. So it's really fun stuff, yeah, but there's no way in hell that they are White Scar. So besides that, this has been my theories as to potential successors or originators of the Marines Malevolent. Like, as I said, I just don't see it with the White Scars, and I really don't see it with the Blood Angels or the Space Wolves. So these chapters, these legions I've listed, these are my theories, these are my reasonings, and besides that, I hope you guys learned a bit about it, like the Marines Malevolent telling Tushan to just kill 33 men because they're infected. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. But besides that, this has been me. I'm out. The next video might be Chaos Legions that might be the owners of this chapter, but I think if you listen to what I said here, you probably know then what Chaos chapters I would most likely subscribe to as far as like who they could have originated from. Besides that, see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and bye-bye.